Biyatu Oromiyaa biyya sirna gadaa kan ittiin beekamtu mallattoon si oola anis biyyaan qabaa tanii ittiin dhaadadhu biyatu Oromiyaa tanii jiruuf abdadhu.
We are on our last presenter of the day. Moving along, the next presenter is probably he's been my role model all my life, a person that I looked up to since I was a little boy, and I still do. And by chance, complete chance, he also happens to be my mother's younger brother. Dr. Bahar Uguma will share a little bit about. We all know communication is key in leadership and organizations. But we hope that he will shed light on what effective communication looks like and how a leader can become successful by using effective communication tools. Dr. Bart Uguma is an international development and diplomacy expert with 30 plus years of successful career in government and international. My son wants me to smell something. Okay. My apologies. Dr. Bart Uguma is an international development and diplomacy expert with 30 plus years of successful career in government and international agriculture research and development organizations in Africa, Asia, and the US. Between 1980 and 1999, Duguma served with 3 international agriculture research organizations as a researcher and research program manager, rising to the position of principal scientist and coordinator of a regional research program. Duguma joined the United States Agency of International Development in 1999 and has served as a senior advisor in USAID Washington, Foreign Service Officer and team lead in USAID Kabul, and Food Security Office Director in USAID New Delhi, India. He led the design, procurement, and management of multi-million-dollar global agricultural research and development programs implemented through Select U.S. Land Grant Program, international Select U.S. Land Grant Universities, and the CGA IAR centers. He has authored or co-authored 2 books and 50 plus articles in peer-reviewed international journals and conference proceedings. Dr. Uguma, the floor is yours, and you have precisely 25 minutes.
Okay, galatomi Tisho. Hunduma keessan irra deebi'ee isin galateeffadha. Waamichi keenya fudhatanii dhufuu keessanii fi wanta baay'een jedhameera dhugaa dubbachuudhaaf keessumaa leadership irratti akka inni slaidii consuming goone fedheen malee typical waaniin ani dhiyeessuudhaaf jedhu effective leadership and successful leadership and effective communication in a full type inside. While leadership irratti danuutu odeeffame. So I probably wouldn't dwell too much on it, but for the purpose of tracking what I had in mind when I put this together, I would once in a while go back and refer to it. As part of my introduction, I will touch on certain perceived challenges of Oromoo organizations, which actually prompted us to put this program together. And then I'll see if I can kind of give a sense of a link between successful leadership and effective communication. I will touch on some aspects of leadership style matrix because of what I want to say down in the next section to lay the groundwork for that. And then for lack of better word, I decided to call this successful leaders attributes. Most of it we have already discussed it in detail. And then I'll move on to how successful leaders effectively communicate. So the key word there is really about effectiveness. What makes communication effective? And I'll see if I can highlight that in practical terms, what it means from the experience of leaders that are known around the world. What have they done? What do they do? Why were they successful? I cannot upfront tell you whether successful leadership is part of their trait as effective communicators, or is it effective communication that makes them successful leaders? I think we can have that conversation. Then I recap what I say there with another one slide at the end. Now, what are the perceived challenges facing Oromo organizations based on what we, those of us in this room primarily, and then a very large segment of our population complain about Oromo organizations? Tokkofaga Oromo organization, there were organizations that emerged over the last probably 60 years. Before then, rightly young maka Oromotin abbachu, Gadaa Madrosim were a good number of them, the pioneer organization like OLF and Co, or clandestine organization that thankfully after so many years are now globally recognized. It is competing interest, self and shared interest due to Oromo case leadership Kuni is a pervasive problem. It affects many organizations. With good intention, at the end of the day, you end up in seeing the people who created hanging on to it as if it is their own tea shop. President for Life syndrome is I would be glad to hear from you how many Oromo organizations you have known over the last 60 years have resulted in a leadership change. And in Beku, Rabbi Jedati Nabarsisa, akkuma isin jedhe jireenya keenya keessatti kan baay'een isaanii dhalatanii 99% isaanii warruma yeroo sana uumeeniti gaggeeffamaa jiru yookaan gwaaddanyoota isaanii yookaan family member isaanii whatever you call them. Trust deficit walamanuu dhabuun rakkoo guddaadha jaallannu jibbinuun abuun sun immoo inherent biasitu jira. That is what seems to cut across most of Oromo organizations. We maybe because of our spoken language culture, we were prohibited from developing our own written language a while back. So we tend to talk a lot. And very impatient. We don't listen. We don't wait to listen with a clear mind, without any bias, without trying to interpret what the person who is talking in front of us is telling us. In fact, before he even says, we want to read into his mind based on what we think, where he comes from, or what we think he thinks. So we talk a lot. We listen, very limited listening. Limited objective analysis. Critical thinking is something that you acquire, but also for a normal average human being, logically so there is this objectivity missing. Most of our conversation more driven by our wishes, desires, wants alone. I'll see if I can explain that when I get to limited theoretical and practical leadership skill. In Nikuni, the division there, Garbumma Kesa Jature, Yero Era Abakenya Abane Tini Imahimbane Jabamne, Rakok Abna. Akkani mana barumsa yoo warra Itoophiyaa taani malee akka Oromootti akkani baranni naman taani nurra taa'anii dhowwaajaa turame beekumsaanis mana barumsaas gallee mana barumsaa gallee barachuudhaaf chaansiin keenya limitedii ture compared to particularly kun hundumtuu relativeidha. I'm comparing it to our competitors instead of calling them inanis yoon jedhe. And then leadership role misconception in Nikunis Jira, which is probably part of the limited theoretical and practical leadership skills. And yet, I would as a leader, Maltunura Egama, Maltunura Egamu by Kulis neighborhood Afrakok Abna. I'm saying this just from my personal experience. there are times when leaders basically shrink in their responsibility and try to blame others who are working under them. They'll say, this is the kind of thing that you hear, where that is literally prohibited if you call yourself a leader. You're a leader, the buck stops with you. You have to take responsibility. I would have loved to see more sign that people to have shown up. But I don't blame those guys who did not show up. I think when we're done with this, I think we're going to regroup with our team, and then we're going to brainstorm on why people are not joining us. As leaders, there is something that we have not done that ought to have been done. That is, whether we like it or not, no matter how bitter it is, that is a fact. Let me go to the next slide. Kanas baay'een dubbatameera. Namni viizinii qabaate wanta guddaa yaaduu danda'e, but who is not effective in communicating, who is not effective in getting that message out, is probably like a candle that is burning in an enclosure. Hin ibsa, hin ifa, hin gubata, but homaa namni itti dhimma ba'u hin jiru ifa sanatti. Akka sanaa ta'uudha. Namni tokko yoo beekumsa qabaate, yoo viizinii qabaate, wanta guddaa argee isa sana buusiisuudhaa fi namoota wajjin hojjechuutu irra jira. Isaanan godha hojjedhee inni jiru ta'e, communication sun jiru ta'e gatii dhaba jechuudha. You can have the greatest idea, kuni Goldman around quote, you can have the greatest idea in the world, but if you can't persuade anyone else to follow, your vision, your influence and impact will be greatly diminished. Kanaaf yeroo baay'ee namoonni leaders, many people can call themselves leaders, and they are truly leaders, but in terms of envisioning something and creating an organization. Leading that organization to success requires a completely different talent in the Kobal. So successful leadership, leader in Adada. Leaders who reach the top study the art of effective communication in all its forms, writing, speaking, presenting constantly. In the office sanity of Barsisan to especially technical areas of communication in akuning asratti waan hojjetaniinis wanta agarsiisaniinis akkamittiin akka ofiisaa miti wanta hojjetan sana namni ni kaan isaan ilaalee hojjechuu kan danda'u waan ittiin godhani. All forms of expression that comes from the successful leaders is part of the effective communication skill that you got. Namati, the same source, Goldman. I'm trying to give you, I'm not going to go through this table. There are different leadership styles. There is commanding, visionary, which is a key word for me. That is what really distinguishes successful leaders from just leaders. And then affiliative, democratic, pace-setter, and if I'm coaching, I don't want to go through this. Let me just focus here on the green side. At the end of the day, overall impact of all these leadership style can be categorized as very negative. All of them can be necessary at different times. These five are commonly exhibited every single day by any leader. However, most successful, most strongly positive outcome is a visionary leader. What is the modus operandi of visionary leader? Mobilizing people towards a vision. This is really the key component of successful leadership. Namni tokko yaada guddaa qabaate wanta mul'isuu danda'u godhee dhaabe isa kana gaggeessuu nama danda'an namoota persuadii godhee namoonni akka isaan isa fudhatanii akkuma inni passionately, as far as keyword, passionate ta'anii akka isaan deeman sana isa inni passionate ta'e sana wanta sana irratti akka namoonni kan passionii sana develop gochuu danda'an gochuu danda'u taanaani it's relatively it's a wasted big idea or big vision jechuudha. Come with me in danda'u. They know how to get people around that idea. Self-confidence, empathy, change catalyst. Why FDR back to how in the most depressed environment he was able to mobilize America. When change required a new vision or a clear direction is needed, you need a visionary leader. Is the most positive leadership style. It's a kind of demand immediate compliance. If you are at a war front, you're not going to ask for people to give you feedback on what you want to plan to do. You have to tell everybody line up and go and shoot, and that is where. But is it the most effective way of providing leadership? Probably not necessarily, especially if you're in a normal environment. Environment in one negative affiliative and democratic in the is positive in most cases. Pace setter in the Kuni is close to commanding, do as I tell you to do, but usually it's a very corrosive environment, working environment. And then coaching, it is positive. You spend more of your time and talent and resources in making sure that people are equipped with the kind of knowledge they need to do what you want them to do. Who are successful leaders practically, and what do they do? Asitti daga waa'ee communication fi waanii godhee kanan ilaalu. Kuni baay'eetu jira, but biyya lafaa irratti yeroo baay'ee maqaan isaanii deebi'ee kan dhaga'amu warri kuni they are in the top tier. Mandelaadha, FDR, eenyu namichi Biritinii kuni Prime Minister Biriitiniidha, Mahatma Gandhi, Reverend Martin Luther King, and then Abraham Lincoln. They have a strong idea, big picture of where to go, where they want to take people. And there is nothing you can possibly do to get them diverted from that big idea. They are big time risk takers. FDR is known, filatame American Depression, biyukun argee imbenne keessa ture. And he believed in taking a bold step. He believed in thinking big, knowing that failure would even bring more disaster. But he said, no, if you fail, you dust up and then you start something else. But you cannot paralyze yourself by not thinking big and then trying it. And lead by example is a Canada kan Kenya yeroo baay'ee kan rakkoon agarru afaanuma duwwaadhaan dubbateeti namni ofiisaati wanta inni jettu communication by doing what you preach tend to lack in many leaders. Successful leaders basically lead by example. It's not only they preach, it's not only they show you direction, it's not only that they give you that big idea, but you see them walking the talk towards that big idea. Demonstrate integrity, which is very critical, communicate effectively, communicate effectively, including communicate effectively, make hard decisions, essentially like FDR, what he did when he ruled the United States, when he came to office. Recognize success and reward it, motivate and inspire, influence others to get things accomplished, give others the benefit of doubt, credibility, very critical. They are always teachers. They delegate. They don't hang on to things. Nama amanu, nama dandeettii qabu in argu, akkamittiin akka responsibility kennan hin beeku. And then when they delegate, they empower that person in full, not halfway. In chichatan demani amantin jajiru. And of course, the same empower others. How they communicate is again a successful, effective communication. Key ingredients are what I have listed here. Active listening, experience keessanii irraa hin agartu ta'a. Yeroo baay'ee yoo observer inni teenyee nama dhaggeeffanne namni mana keessa jiru ni gaaffii gaafachuuf inni dubbachuudhaaf wixxifatu hamma inni dubbatu hundumaa yeroo laannee fi utuu jenne, by the time everybody has spoken, you may find out that in fact you don't need to ask anything or you don't even need to say anything. Want by inside it again. Lamafani audience appropriate ta'uu jira. Keessumaati, if you are a leader and you are the one who is communicating, you really have to understand the profile of your listeners. If you are having somebody who is a farmer who has never been to naannoo Laqamteetti argamee hin beekne, as opposed to a professor from Harvard, mana tokko keessa jiru yoo ta'e, you have to learn, you have to figure out how you want to get your message across to both people in the same room, with the same language. That is what successful leaders do. They recognize the presence of people in that room and they target their content of their speech to make sure that everybody gets it. Clear. I have worked with somebody who said, Byro, you give people one or two words and then let them figure out. You don't clarify. I'm not to complain, you got to clarify and go to it. And then somebody who said that's my supervisor, but we're very close as a friend. So namona kasida confidence about your. So what do? They leave you in cloud and expect you to come up with idea to solve it. To leaving a room for themselves to either deny or accept responsibility. Concise. Yeroba inu rakonu ikabnu as Oromos. Amma mohat mosati chala do kena sakata Oromoo duwami ifama nalu amaleni roni lalu biya Kenya ti wontu defamu inna in the end I'm looking for full stop and I can barely see. So concisely wani gochunis rakora is very successful leaders are very concise when they communicate. They are very concrete. They don't leave anything to ambiguity. They are very coherent when they communicate. They are very considered. They choose their words carefully. They avoid anything that may be interpreted or screwed, irritating, frustrating, or demeaning to other people. They are always complete. They are courteous. They communicate with the people with respect. They are always confident because they know what the heck they're talking about anyway. They're empathic, the same as being considered. Feel about other person, especially the people that they lead. They respect you for what you do. They acknowledge that. They communicate in 100 different ways. Reward, verbal congratulation, holding some event for you, whatever, to make the people they lead be aware that they are valued and they see that they are making a difference for the organization. They give and also receive constructive feedback. Very often, it's easy for people to come and tell you, sometimes actually lying to you, oh, you did great. This is very good for diplomatic, whatever. You don't have to go out of your way and tell what you just said is rubbish. You don't either to be able to give a useful, constructive feedback in a way that is palatable to listener. And successful leader know how to do that. Successful leader know how to receive constructive feedback. And then understanding nonverbal messages. And if you're a leader, successful leader, if you're an effective leader, just by the way your people come in and go out of the office, over time, you will realize the day they are excited, the day they are happy, the day they are depressed. And it is up to you as a successful leader to be aware of that and make sure that you interact in a way that is not intrusive, but in a way and with a single sole purpose of trying to understand and solve that person's problem if you can. I am now recapping. I don't want to call this a conclusion. Successful leaders are visionary. I have said that over and over again. and the previous speakers have said that. They are people-focused, coming up with a big idea, having a big vision is one part of the whole equation to be a successful leader or for a successful leader. So they are people focused. I have repeatedly mentioned they care, they study, they try to find out, reward or solve their problem. They command, they don't demand. Command jechuun wanta isaan hojjetan sila namni gaafateera akkamittiin trustii si godhu akkamittiin amanta leader. Very easy. You can see there are a host of things that leaders do that make you worship them. They do. It's a warra. Who do you know who I am? In this injedu, that is not a leader. That is the one who is demanding you to respect it. That's not what leaders do. Successful leaders do. Successful leaders do their job. Successful leaders understand you. Successful leaders, they coach you, they teach you, they make you productive human being for that organization. And what would that do to you? You trust them, you see what they say, you see what they do, and therefore build that confidence, and therefore you worship them. Persuasive, effective leaders are indeed convincing. Words match deeds. They communicate very clearly, concise, complete, short and simple. They're very logical. They listen intensely. And then, of course, self-aware. That is a key ingredient of successful leaders. And they always encourage, coach strategic thinking. Both in a verbally communicated way, by doing it, or even from their programs that they try to institutionalize to make people in that organization more productive. They think 24/7 on how to lead, go to the next stage, and do that by the people or with the people or using the people that they lead, not do it by themselves. Galatom, as Marathon.
Thank you very much, Dr. Duguma. That was a very informative presentation, and I hope everybody, if not everything, but learn at least a few things. I love the non-verbal communications. I'm very big on those. But I'll give a chance to anybody who wants to ask questions or comment first before I try to speak as less as possible. Here's your chance. Dr. Moa, you go first.
Yeah, Dr. Bahru Galatomi. I think we are putting, I know it is a topic of the discussion, too much emphasis on the leadership, but also there is equally important to consider who are led kanjero. I'm a Gafina and Dr. Bahrura. Isa duri ho ifne asmati werum henya kesati abadanu leadership pidanu jenne bafne hundinu fashalai argirasit. What is the problem? Is there anything inherent contagion? Why we are failing that? Namotanu abne gagesna yen gagesyen namajenne asmatu wa make arabne wa make digami argajira. So is there inherent problem with this?
Good question. I'll ask one from Dr. Maku and then we'll go to you, Dr. Duguma.
Yeah, galatoma hundi keessanii barumsa guddaa ture an arganne irraa waan tokko garuu anaaf xinnoo confused waan godhan jiru fakkeenyaaf deddeebi'ee yaanimamu rakkoon irra qabnu garboonni gatii garboomneef yaan jedhus jira waa'ee garbummaa kun waggaa baay'ee haasa'ama. Kanuma wajjin wal qabsiisne awareness inni jedhus xinnoo wajjin ilaalamu natti fakkaata. Awareness har'a ilaallu kun Dr. Hailen tuqee ture bal'inaan iyyuu tuqee garbummaa keessaa bahuu dadhabneetti hanqabsoon keenya qancaree isa jedhu wajjin akkam ilaalama. Hamma kana gadheedha awarenessiin Oromoo keessa jiru. Oromoon baay'ee guddachaa qaba miti har'a waggaa 60 as waan baay'ee dubbatame. waa'ee garbummaas. Akkamitti kun har'a akka rakkootti ilaalama awarenessiin keenya amma kana loowuudhaan jedhudha. Inni lammaffaa immoo waa'ee generally dubbatamaa ture leadershipii kana environmentii kam keessatti akka ilaallus hubachuu qabna. Society akkam keessattidha. Leadership in developed society yookiin immoo akka biyya keenya oddoo diktaatoriitti leadership akkamiitu biqiluu qaba. Han jedhu baay'ee nama haasofsiisudha. What we hear today anuma just wanni irra tokko experience isaa hanime jira garuu anuma barumsa keessa darbine mana barumsaattis fiildi keenyas ta'e immoo politikeenya umni kuusa jedhan sana follow up yoo goonu han barannudha. Biyya keenya keessatti yoo galle garuu condition isaan biraati. Leadershipin har'aatti keessatti hojjechuu danda'u factory biraatu isaaf jira natti fakkaata. Kan akkamitti walitti fiddu garbummaa nu qaqqabee fi awareness keessa jiru.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Baru. Let's take 2 more questions. You take your notes. We'll take from Damise and Jamal. Dr. Damise, you're next, and Jamal, please take 1 or 2 minutes each.
Yeah, just 1 minute. I mean, by Galatoma, Dr. Baru, that is excellent presentation. One question I have is there such thing as effective leader always? I mean, successful leader, effective leader, Jennu Kuni, is that not relative? Malifi situation adada, namni tokko har'a iddoo tokko irratti successful yoo ta'e, iddoo biraa irratti garuu successful ta'uu hin danda'u. So we don't expect all-rounded successful leader. Waan tokko namni tokko organizationii tokko gurmeessee cimsee fuulduratti adeemsisuudhaaf dandeettii qabaachuu danda'a, coordinate gochuudhaaf. Ammoo leaderii visionary ta'ee immoo fuulduratti deemuudhaaf dandeettii sana hin qabu ta'a. So don't you see a collaborative approach be more effective than just a leader? Isa jedhu kaasuu barbaade ulfaadhu. Relative amalee successful effective leader nu jennu kuni it doesn't work always. Isa jedhu itti dabalu ulfaadhu.
Thank you, Jamal. And then I'll get okay.
No, it's a good presentation. I have 2 questions regarding Ethiopian Empire. Most of institution was dominated by one colonialism. There are so many institutions in Oromoo, not also dominate in language. Afaan qofa dominate godhatti hin jirani, organization illee dominate godhatti jiran. Kanaaf furmaata akkatti gaafiin inni lammaffaadha. Waa'ee self awareness irratti waan guddaa nu barsiiftanii waa'ee galatooma achuma barbaada.
Galatoomii, Dr. Baru, chance si kennee achi booddee namni sadii namni harka kaasee jira. I'll give you a chance to answer this. I think you're not a mute, so go ahead.
Okay. One is why the failure, Sajeruda. You know, I wish I know for sure what is the reason and in a position to fix it. But most of my thought is basically based on what I have learned in life. And I'm not a young man. So what that suggests to me more is that, particularly looking at Oromo organization across the board, political organizations, I don't question for a second how dedicated, how passionate, how whatever both as leaders or as conscious Oromos we are to see ending slavery. However, something that many of you may not like to hear, including each and every one of us in this room, we don't seem to realize when we blur the difference between giving yourself 100% for the cause of that organization or what that organization stands for versus at the back of our mind what we think is the best for Oromos. Therefore, need to follow your thinking to get to where we want to go. In other words, we fail repeatedly to divorce our personal drive from collectively thinking what is the best approach, what is the best organization, what is the best idea or ideology, what is the best strategy that we need to adapt, extracted from the many brilliant brains that we have that will take us to our end goal, freedom. It's a genocide. That, in my opinion, explains, and I can go to details and then give you litany of examples. That is responsible, in my opinion, for the failure of many of our organizations. I have been told by somebody who is establishing an organization, honey, I'm in this business because my dad sacrificed for it and I love my dad. That is a kind of thinking. Somebody is fighting for Oromo cause because his dad did something for Oromo or wanted to see Oromo free or whatever. So yaada kasakasi kana yeroon ilaalu hamminan jiru. Sabni keenya hundumti keenya, we are really passionate, we need to do something, but we fail to differentiate that line. Makbib, self-awareness, I will leave that to Haile to comment. Demise, I agree with Dr. Demise. It is dependent. Garu dependent erosion and silas jalqaba masakana wane chature why successful leaders jandu batature fida. However, within that there is a huge spectrum of leadership, and we need most of those leadership to get any organization functioning properly. So I'm not saying that one has to be always visionary and then be able to drive. Everybody should be a preacher like Martin Luther King for us to do what we want to know. We have different gradients of leadership styles that are relevant and needed in Amana. Jamal and Gafinken and Galle Hankenya, Jireni Kenya, Aboli Kenya, Janaman dominated it to Raymond, but what is the question there?
Jamal, can you clarify your question?
Gafin and
Gaaffiin inni kadura kolonalizimii irratti kolonalizimiin kun naannoo Oromiyaa keessatti waan hedduu gaggeessaa jira, ispeeshaalii afaan dabalatee kan addaatis akka organizeeshiniin tokko NGO'ta dhaabota alaa dhufan ta'a kan sabuma tokkoon doomineet ta'ee jiru jechaadha. Kuni akka gubbaa dhufe sanitti hawaasa bira ga'uutti hin jiru yaada jedhuun qaba.
Oh, yeah, I mean, fallout in the colonial system in I. Amma dhiiga keenya keessa jira, mana kana keessa teenye. Amantus amanuu dhabaattus. I always use practical examples to make my point, and I don't want to go too far. Tuni warra alaqaa koo ta'ee jiraadhe warra gwaaddanyaa kootu hin ta'e manuma kootii jalqabeen ilaala. I look across spectrum of my own relatives. Wanta namni jecha afa deemaa jiru kuni waa'ee colonial system hammam akka inni nu hacuuce maalirraan akka inni nu ga'e ibsuudhaafadha kan jechuun jedhu. In the process, I want to answer Makbib's question. Hamma yawwanaayyuu hirribaan ka'ee jiraan unateetu. Makbib, you will be shocked. Yes, compared to Anifat Yero University to Rwanda Jirura Amadogari Jira, thanks to Kume generation. but we are light years away from being where we're supposed to do in terms of ending slavery. Why? Out of nothing less than, out of 100 people that I know related to me, Iga, Fonin, Anatti, Hanamanako, Turiyatan Kesati, we are less than 5% who live Oromoo life today. In a very uncertain terms. About 50% of them are right now, as I speak to you, lining up fighting for Abi and for Orthodox Christian Church. I'm telling you, namana matajira miti. Hamas miti kun. Ugan masitti majira. Kuni pirota ko iga koti. Okay? So this is where we are. And I bet you, Manakana Keskan Jistondum to you have that kind of challenge. And that is where we are. Wantini nuch absence suni, late Kenya kesalite, Rabbi Nagalatu Kesab Ajira, Abat Ajira. That's not too bad. But hey, when you how often do you call your friend's telephone number and then you hear at the background somebody speaking in Amharic, and to the best of your knowledge, you don't know anybody who lives in that house. So number 5, I mean, I can go on listing stuff.
No, thank you. Thank you very much. We'll take, we'll take the next round of questions. We'll start from Mekra and then Kanani. And then we'll take maybe 2 more before you answer. Just take notes, Dr. Duma. Mekra, it's yours. You're on mute.
Yeah. Wani ati jette wana netti mormu tokko iyyuu hin jiru. Wanti kuni waanuma biyya lafarra jiru waan ittiin hojjetamaa jirudha. Garuu Oromiyaatti yoon deebi'u, Oromootti yoon deebi'u, waa'ee Oromoo haasa'aa jirraa ilaatamoo warruma mana barumsaa dhaqee waa baratee warra akka keenyaa kanaa waa'ee isaanii haasa'aa jirraa jedhee isa makuu jedhee wajjin wal qabsiisee even kan waan jedhee wajjin illee wal qabsiisee yoon ilaalu waan gara biraan argaa jiran. Waan an argaa jiru muuxannoo mataa kooti. Muuxannoo dheeraan qaba waggaanuma wajjin deema muuxannoon. Community development workeriin ture gidaamii biyya jedhamu. Jaarsolii wajjin uummata wajjin hojjetu. Achitti leadershippiin akkamitti akka functioning godhu kan biyya lafaa wajjin ilaalatu hin ta'in kan Oromoo keessa kaayee ilaalu kan Gadaa wajjin adeemeetu uummanni keenya sun akka malee disiplinii ta'uurraa kan ka'e wal dhaggeeffachuu isa diidii isa godhu immoo dhaggeeffachuu yoo nammaati immoo itti himuu akkas ture.
Baay'ee fayyaa ta'a. Warri barnoota nuu kennitanii yaada keessan kanas nuu hirtanii ulfaadhaa galatoomaan jedhaa yaada baay'ee miidhagaadha. Ani ka guyyaa guutuu qoodan fudhanne walga'icharraa kan hin dhaggeeffadhe speakersii warra dubbatan lamaan duwwaan dhaga'e. Garuu gaaffiin ani qabu waa'ee hooggana yeroo dubbannu hoogganni tokko waan irra dhaabbatee uummata yookiin dhaaba isaa hoogganuu qaba. Kana jechuun ideoloojiitu jira. Sirna ittiin uummata yookiin miseensota geggeessutu jira. Amma kan isin lafa keessanii keessattuu Dr. Bahiruun lafa kaa'ee waa'ee hoogganaa akkani hubadhutti hoogganaa waan biyya Western Dimokiraatii kana keessatti akkamitti akka hojjetudha. Garuu akkuma amma Dr. Makuriyaan jedhe yoo gara Oromootti deebine waa'ee hoogganaa yeroo haasofnu maalirra dhaabbanneeti. Akkuma Dr. Makuriyaan jedhe sirna gadaa sanarra dhaabbanneeti achirraa kaanee hoogganni keenya maal fakkaataa attamitti nu geggeessaa innee maayidhu kiraayiteriyaa lafa keewwannee ittiin ilaalluutu jira. Yoommoo gara Itoophiyaatti immoo achi as deebine Itoophiyaan kan warra as keessa jiru yookaan beeku warri tarii umuriidhaan hin bubbulliin yookiin umuriin isaanii baay'ee guddaan ta'in hin beekan ta'a malee nuyi warri kaan bara feudalizimii Haile Sillaasee keessa jiraanne jirra. Achi keessatti hoogganni akkatti uummata bushutu jira yookiin dhaaba bushutu jira. Achi dhufee central maayidhosa democratic centralismiitu dhufee dhaabbileen Oromoo ani hamman beekutti akka yaadutti warri OPDOyyuu ammallee sirna democratic centralismii sanaan waan hojjetan natti fakkaata. Kanaaf gaaffiin ani qabu Dr. Bahiruu yeroo waa'ee hoogganaa dubbattanii ideological background isaa kamirraatii dubbattanii nuuf immoo maaltu mala haala amma nuyi keessa jirru kana keessatti keessattuu akkuma amma Dr. Makuriyaan jedhee biyyaa wajjin yeroo wal qabsiisnee ilaallu. Fayyaa ta'a.
Galatoomaa adda qananii baay'ee ulfaadha. Thank you very much. We have probably 5 minutes. I'm going to see the skills of the two audience that's going to ask a question, and Dr. Bahiruu is going to be concise. Kan jedhu amar kana irratti argina. Dr. Gammachuu fi Dr. Hambisaan gaaffii keessan gaafadhaati. I expect very concise and to the point answer from Dr. Bahiruu to conclude, and then we have some closing remarks before we finish. So Dr. Gammachuu, your turn.
Hello, Tisho. Galatomi baay'ee Dr. Bahiruu illee baay'ee galatomi jechuu barbaada. Gaaffiin kiyya how to sell vision or how to implement your vision ka jedhu achirratti waan takka alamoo jechuu barbaade dhiifama daddafa irratti uma rakkin jiru. 2005 waa wayii suggesti godhee ture Catholic Church keessatti amma waan sinodosii afaan Oromootiin haasa'aa jiran kanaaf. Maali fi ummanni keenya right fi uumanne akka Israel if Latin right in jiru Oromoon ko fi uumatuun danda'u ka ambaa yeroo hundaa akka hordofu jechuuf. Attamiin hojjetuu danda'ama. I think they might have right time or right audience. Attam godhuu danda'ama visionii kenna implementii godhuuf jechuuf jira galatu.
Thank you. That's a very visionary question. In lieu of time, I will skip Dr. Hambisa. Forgive me. And we'll go directly to Dr. Bahiruu, so you can concisely answer and comment on the points that were raised by the in several individuals.
We all asked very challenging questions, quite very personal but very challenging questions, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it, nor am I going to try to be diplomatic. And I can Dr. Makriyas can arpasesi will take up in debisa really. Nuni, as Oromos, we have an institution, we have establishment, we have a system. In absence of our failure,
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, and yakan amanuti Professor Mokre ad darfase leaders akatani abni toko gaggeeffamu leaders or leadership in amasi ana operating which are biyana barratti waggaa baay'ee keessa evolve dhufee dana ga'ee aadaa dhibba meeqa keessaa walitti ba'ee dhufee dana ga'ee researchii meeqa keessaa hojjetamee dhufee dana ga'e. None of the way whatever the Brits did their business 200, 300 years ago or 1,000 years ago, Germans did their own whatever. So it is the experience translated into a better leadership, a better way of doing business that cumulatively brought us to where we are today. Anisi, I Gadaa wanta baay'ee baranna, wanta keessaa fudhanneetti dhimma ba'uu qabna, but Gadaa dhaabannee gara fuulduraatti deemnu jechuuni, in my opinion, it is not the right thing. For me, there is one way of providing good leadership, We know it. It's proven by science. It is working every day. CEOs are fired around the world because they are not performing. Nobody is firing everybody in that organization. There is a problem with the leadership. Our leadership is not any different from any other successful or failed leaders. Akka jedheen amana. So nun kan ni gochuudhaa qabnu hamma danda'ametti, yes, we have been far behind. Lafuma jirru kaanii tattaafanne akkamitti art of leadership jabanammaa keessatti iddoo jirrutti ittiin dhimma baanee gara fuulduraatti ittiin deemuu dandeenya isa jedhu yaadu duwwaadha. That is my thinking. We can have this separate conversation. How can we translate that into action? You just in a gafatan. Gamachu, if vision kana akamitini, yeah, it's good to have a vision, but how can we make that vision a reality? Guys, gamachu kana gafatani.
Akkasuma jedheeti right time if right audience barbaachisaa miti. Vision jiraate fi miti jedhe amma 2005 irratti vision yoyi qabaataa turre Oromoon akkuma Israa'iti jarri qabuuf Laatin raayitii warri faranjoota qabu maaliif ofiin qabaannee rituaalii odoo eebbaaf waan baay'ee qabnaa gariif maaliif qabaatu dadhabnee ka jedhu san.
Isin kun egaa saayinsii miti dhugaa dubbachuudhaaf matsaafa kana keessattan arge waan hin jedhuun qabu I still continue to explain it out because of where we are in our ability to lead ourselves. Iddoon amma jirre isuma sila himaa turedha. Inni nu gaggeessus inni duukaa deemurra jirus even our level of consciousness eessa jirra. Visionii keenya kan jirurraan ga'uudhaaf kan nuyi dadhabaa jirruu fi rakkoo kanatu jira isa keessaatii ba'uu qabna. Makria raised about the PP nama baay'eetu leessa mana kana keessaati Oromoodha isaanis ijoolluma keenyadha blah blah blah. Ani ifama naa godhaa malee I don't see that way. I don't see them as our children capable of leading us. Oromoo ta'uu isaanii kaadaa jiran miti ifama naa godhaa fi I can go on record without any fear or favor. Waggaa 30 dura groupiin kun yeroo dhalatanii Tigreetu nu uume nutu uummataniti. Tigreetu nuu fide nutu filataniti. Tigreen anaan bilisuma baasuuf hin kaane, siin bilisa baasuuf hin kaane. Ijoollee keenya warra bilisa nu baasuuf ka'an araganiiti, isa kaan hidhaniiti, isa kaan ajjeesaniiti. Ijoollee ergaa ergachuu danda'an walitti qabaniiti dhaabanii. Komponentii isaan dhaaban san waamamu miti. Akkamittiin immoo gaggeessan waggaa 30 kana keessatti yoo jettanii ilaaltanii inni kan keenya duwwaa miti. Kan keenyas, kan Sidaamaas, kan biraas Systemni ittiin namni ofii isaatii jiraatee biyya isaa dinagdee maal hojjetee ittiin jiraachuu danda'u hundumtu yeroo akka inni caba godhanii and they did that by killing the human resource capacity of these regions. Kan Tigree duwwaa biyya special galaniitu torban tokkoon fixii mana nagadaa bananii. And this is something that I know. Trade school akka isaan nagadaa sooromanii. Isa booddee in less than 10 years they created elites of everything in that country, literally all of them made up of Tigrayans. Hindi yeroo jedhu nama 20 ta'anii dhufu mishiniin Itoophiyaadhaa liidarii kan isaanii ta'e kan dhufu nama waggaa 30 guunne highly educated PhD kan qabdu ri'oota alamii isaanii keessatti kan dhalatte inni kaan Oromoo PhD achi qabu isa qabu maal jedhanii luka yaa'a ofii isaan mataa isaanii express gochuu hin danda'ani. That is how they control the system. So, Dr. Makre, to answer you, right now, as far as those who are speaking on your behalf, on my behalf, in that government, they are not speaking for you. They don't have the capacity, the capability to do that. In Abani, in Jiru, Samun, Kanini Alatifis, Kanini Hojjetis, Kanini Trendis, Wanta Kambrad Afi, Binisuma Oromotif Miti, Si Lapati. And that is what we are seeing here.
Thank you very much, Dr. BIRMADUU. Congratulations, everybody. This concludes the first leg or first day of our 2-day leadership and organizational management skills webinar. I want to express my heartfelt gratitude and thanks to all our presenters and our audience. I want to remind everybody to bring your friends and people in your committee that are leaders for tomorrow's presentation. We have another amazing, experienced lineup of presenters. And with this, I'm Tisho, and thank you very much for being with us today.